so it's nighttime, and I know that this is bright. You just gotta bear with me. I'm working with a reptile lamp and a desk lamp, so I'm doing the best that I can. This video is going to be video 7, and this is going to, I really want to talk about the annulment. The annulment, which allowed my children to be taken for 2 years from me, okay? For those of you who don't know what an annulment is, it is, to explain it as layman's terms I possibly can, an annulment is for people who have decided that they never meant to get married, basically. Or they were lied to, or, there's a couple other things that will constitute a valid annulment. You still do have to petition the courts for an annulment. It's not just like, oh, they lied to you, okay, now you're annulled. That's not how it works. But it's meant for fraudulent marriages or like accidental marriages. And I'm going to use, okay, say you go to Vegas with your boyfriend, girlfriend, fucking whatever, right? And you're drinking, getting a little wasty face. You got the good oxygen pumping through the casinos. You got those rose-colored glasses on heavy. And then all of a sudden you and your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, want to get married. So you go to the little white chapel in Vegas, get married. But say you wake up the next day and you're like, that wasn't a good idea. You are allowed to annul that marriage, which means that person owes you nothing. That marriage basically never existed. It's not like a divorce, in which a divorce requires spousal support and you have to like divide property and all of that stuff. It's like you were never married. A good example would be Miss Britney Spears was in Vegas a while back before she married the father of her kids, and she got married to a childhood friend in Vegas, and her team was quick to annul it. Within 48 hours, that marriage was annulled, and it was like she had never been married. So that person didn't get anything just for like being married to her, which was probably smart because she has a lot of money. Anyways, so an annulment is very different than divorce. And usually there are very specific criteria that need to be met for an annulment to be granted. If you look, I don't know, I was Googling it, and if you look at the differences between a voidable marriage and a marriage that is annulled, it seems to me as if that overlaps a little bit, but they're not exactly the same thing. In my case, well, let's talk about statute of limitations first. If you don't know what statute of limitations are, that is the amount of time in which someone commits a crime that they can be punished for it. So like you saw in video 3 and 4, or no, video 4 and 5 of Lisa coming into my home and assaulting me in 2021. I could not press charges on her now if I wanted to, because the statute of limitations is up. It's 2 years in Virginia. That's how long you have to press assault charges. So I couldn't do that because the statute of limitations is over. Virginia also has a statute of limitations for annulments, and it is also 2 years. Josh hired this lawyer, Jana Naderman, who we're going to get into also, to file for an annulment after 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. I was a military wife, and I ended up on the streets because this annulment was filed and granted. So that should tell you right there, that's a big problem. If the statute of limitations is going to apply to some crimes, it needs to apply to all crimes, right? So the correct thing really would have been me and Josh and Travis getting charged for bigamy or whatever. But that's not what happened. And I'm going to tell you how they got away with this. And it has a lot to do with my first marriage. So when I was 22, I married my high school friend, Travis, as Deacon said. And we were very young and very impulsive. We didn't even date before we got married. We were very young. So we got married. Everybody was surprised. All of our families were against it because, as they probably should have been, because they didn't know. I mean, my mom knew who Travis was because she remembers him from me being friends with him in high school. But as far as anybody was concerned, there was no relationship that was built on it. It just kind of happened because we were young and making poor, dumb decisions. It is what it is. That's what happens. So Travis and I married 2 days before my 22nd birthday. 3 days, something like that. We were married for a short while. Deacon was conceived I found out I was expecting in either February or March. So Deacon was conceived shortly after we got married, even though we weren't trying. Deacon was our beautiful surprise, and he is a gift, and he is an angel, and I would never, ever say anything that I would regret anything with either of my children, because they are amazing. They are my heart. So me and Travis, before Deacon was even born, okay, he was only conceived a couple months after we married. Before he was even born, Travis was already telling me that he wasn't into it. He didn't want to be married anymore, whatever. And I told him, do what you gotta do, man. And I'm not saying that as like to be like a nasty reflection on Travis. I don't think that it should be, because we were so young and we didn't know. Like, I don't know. I don't blame Travis. I just don't think that was really his fault. I mean, it was his fault, but also the marriage was kind of a little sketch to begin with, because we were just out one day and we're like, hey, let's go get married. Like, it was weird, right? So Deacon's born, Travis ends up moving out. And when that happened, my dad, who you'll remember from video 2 and the motive of what Jennifer has done, he was still alive, and he knew more about divorce and life, obviously, than I did, and he wanted to protect his little girl, so he hired me a lawyer. He hired me a lawyer that was the same lawyer that he had used to divorce my mother, which will also come up in a little bit. And they were great. They were amazing. They did everything they were supposed to do. I don't have anything nasty to say about them. I feel bad that they were lied to later on in the story by Jennifer and Chris. And I feel bad that they, once again, this law firm was another victim of circumstance of all this, how all this crazy stuff happened. So he hires the lawyers, and we sign separation papers. And we have to wait a year, because that's in Virginia. You have to wait a year if you have kids to get a divorce. So we waited a year, and then the year came and passed, and my dad was kind of like, okay, you ready? He wasn't being like nasty or pushy. He was just like, you should probably finalize this, like, do it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So Dad gets our final decree of divorce from the law firm, right? And it was mostly just based on what was already in the separation agreement. He handed me a copy of of what I thought was the official final decree of divorce. I was young. I didn't know. I had never been through a divorce before. And I did a poll about a month ago about this on Facebook, and they definitely didn't teach me in high school, 12 years of public schooling, and they're still not teaching about divorces. So, yes, I didn't know this, but to be fair, how would I know this? The issue wasn't the attorney. The issue was that my dad was a good man taking care of his daughter, and he was doing the go-between between me and Travis and like the legal stuff, right? He was doing it all because he loved me and he would do anything to protect me. And he loved Deacon, and I mean, that little boy was the apple of my daddy's eye, for sure. As soon as he came out, he was, he really loved Deacon. It was amazing. So, the final decree is printed, or I guess it would have been like an agreement for the final decree. I signed it. Travis signs it. Travis remembers this. He's told me that since then. We both signed it, and we thought it was done. We thought we were divorced. Like, we signed the paper, we both signed it, we both agreed. It was not a contested divorce to begin with. I had no idea, and nor did Travis, that we were going to need to go in front of a judge and say whatever to make that final. I didn't know that. And maybe that's my fault, but it wasn't intentional. Also, I don't even think I had a smartphone yet. Like this, we're talking almost 16 years ago. I mean, this was a long time ago. I was a single mom with a brand new baby. I was trying to maintain the lifestyle that I thought Deacon deserved, and working a lot, and I thought, I don't know, like my dad had it. My dad was so strong, such an amazing man, like, and he would have. But here's where it takes a bit of a turn. So Travis and I sign the papers, and we think we're done. I give them to my dad, and he goes, okay, I'm going to give these to the lawyers. He's like, okay. Well, about 2 weeks later, my dad passed away. It was unexpected. I was devastated, obviously. I was shocked. I was confused. I didn't know. Like, the whole next year was just like a kind of like a whirlwind. It was so much. I was so young, dealing with the loss of a parent, an unexpected loss of a parent. And I have this baby. I'm just trying to do the best I can. And me and Travis already thought we were divorced. But unfortunately, my dad passed away before he had the chance to even give those papers to the law firm, which is why I say that is one of the reasons why I say that this is not that law firm's fault, not even close. They never even got those papers because my dad passed away, and I didn't know he hadn't given them to the lawyer at the time. I didn't know that was how divorces worked. And that was kind of it. So, after that, I remarried, maybe a year or two. I don't remember exactly what the timeline was when me and Josh got together, as opposed to when me and Travis were separated, because it was a lot. But me and Josh remarried, and then we were together for 10 years, right? And I was a military wife for 10 years. I wasn't a non-contributing military wife, not financially, because I got an annuity from the death of my father that was like $1,100 a month, every month, for like the first 7 years of our marriage. It was only a year after that ended that Josh decided to dip out. So me and Josh get married, and we are married. Okay, so we haven't been married for 10 years. We've been married for 8 years. And if you go back to video 2, you'll see that it wasn't working out there. He was abusive, and I needed him to be away from my children. That was what I needed. It wasn't really about me at all at that point. So I asked him if, we could do counseling. I begged him for a year to do counseling. He refused, and then finally I was like, we can do counseling, or you can just go. And he left. And that was all of it, right? No. The plot twist is coming. You'll also see, if you go back to video 2, how Jennifer and Chris were trying so hard to destroy me, because they ended up moving into the house that my father left me. And when Josh left, I was forced to sell that house in order to get him away from my children. That was what he needed to leave us alone. So I gave him $15,000 from the sale of that house to pay his credit card bills, so that he wouldn't have all these bills every month if he was going to go stay with his grandma or like stay wherever. And ever since I sold that house, even though Jennifer and Chris didn't pay a dime of rent the whole time they lived there, because I never asked them to. This is my mom. Why would I charge my mom rent? It's weird. Once I sold that house, they no longer were interested in being my parents. They were no longer interested in me. They have been forcing a narrative about me that is that I am unstable and crazy and all of these other horrible things, which I am not. We have not had a relationship in a very long time, and I mentioned in one of the other videos also that I made a reel of her, I was trying to be of pictures of us together, but the reel is very short. It is to Taylor Swift's Bad Blood. I wanted it to be longer, but I could only find one picture of us together at all. Like, my archives only go back about 10 years, and I have one picture of me and her together. And for any of you that believe that Jennifer is so sad about how all of this has happened and we were so close, I would implore you to ask her just to see a few photos of us together, because I know she doesn't have them. They don't exist. She wasn't in my life, not for years. Anyways, so she was set out to destroy me. She tried to have me committed, and then her and Chris kept Deacon for over 2 months, and during those 2 months, they were talking to Travis saying, hey, you need to apply for full custody. You have this other new wife now. She could take care of Deacon. You need to apply for full, even though Travis hasn't really been in Deacon's life ever. Like, he just hasn't. He's not, and I'm not saying that to throw him under the bus either, but he just hasn't. Like, they have never been close. If anything, Chris has been Deacon's main father figure in his life. As much as I hate to say that, it is true. So Travis goes to do that and apply for custody, and all of a sudden, he can't find our divorce decree, which should be public. It should be like public documents. He couldn't find it. Everybody was confused, I guess. I didn't find out about all of this until a little bit later, but so remember earlier when I said that my dad chose the same attorney to use for my divorce that he used for his divorce with my own mother when I was 6 years old? That's where this gets important. Chris, Jennifer's husband, well, not husband, boyfriend now, called that attorney and pretended to be Travis to ask all of the details of what happened. Okay? That was not Travis that called that attorney. That attorney thought it was Travis because he later told me that, but it wasn't. Travis said it wasn't, and I believe him because Travis was just as shocked and confused about all this as I was. So Chris calls this attorney's office pretending to be Travis, who would have been the man that I was divorcing over a decade prior, and they find out that the divorce never went through. It never went through because me and Travis thought we were done, and we weren't. And we didn't know that. Nobody lied to Josh. Nobody lied to anybody, at least not knowingly. So that was her grounds. That was this lawyer, Jana Naderman, who works, I guess, for the Toscano Law Group here in Virginia Beach. That was her grounds for filing an annulment after 10 years, was that I was technically still married to my first husband, even though me and my first husband, Travis, We were not together longer than a year. We did not reside together longer than a year. We never filed taxes together. We did not share a bank account. It was not, it just wasn't. It wasn't, we didn't build a life together. That never happened. We got married, made a baby, and then just continued to be friends from then on out. Like, it wasn't, I mean, yes, on paper it was a legal marriage, but it wasn't a substantial marriage. Now, me and Josh, quite contrastingly, were married for 10 years, filed our taxes together every single year, lived together 8 years. Okay. Not only that, but Josh is active duty military. And if you don't know how the military works, if you have a wife and dependents, which he was claiming Deacon too as a dependent, so he had all three of us as dependents, you get a lot of extra money than if you were a single sailor. It's not the same. So in my rational brain, it seems to make a little more sense to annul the first one than to annul the second one. But that's not what happened. And this is where Miss Naderman comes in a little bit, because should that annulment have been filed? Probably not. Should that judge have realized that there was a 2-year statute of limitations and probably been like, probably. I did not have a lawyer during my annulment trial. And I want to be clear that the judge who dealt with my annulment is not the same judge who dealt with my custody. Jana Naderman was the same on both cases, even though she filed them under 2 different last names. And we continued it with the annulment stuff. We continued it in court one time, and they said, call legal aid, call military JAGs or whatever. And I did not get any help as hard as I tried. So I ended up showing back up without any representation. I don't remember being offered a court-appointed attorney. I don't want to definitively say that I wasn't offered one, but I feel like had I been, I certainly would have jumped on that because I was scrambling. Josh had cut off finances for me and our my 2 children. Only one of them is biologically his. That was Mona. He had already cut off our finances over a year prior to this. I had no money. There was no way that I could have afforded any kind of attorney to fight this. And to be honest, I didn't think I needed one because it sounded so crazy to me. This all sounded like, what? You're going to annul a 10-year marriage? A 10-year military marriage? Where you've given this sailor 10 years worth of dependent pay for 3 people? That doesn't sound rational in any way. And it wasn't like I lied. So we go into court. And if you look for my annulment, you're not going to find it under Jamie Griglight. You'll find it under Jamie Grossnickel. Because this was Miss Naderman's way of covertly bullying me. And in my opinion, it was her way of saying to the judge that I was still married to Travis without actually saying it. Even though Travis had already remarried. Anyways, she's going to come up a lot later in the custody stuff, because I just found out like 20 minutes ago that not only is she an attorney, she's also a certified guardian ad litem, which is terrifying because she was not the guardian ad litem that was appointed to my case. I'll make that very clear. She was the opposing attorney. But the fact that this woman did this to another woman for money, and it's lawyers, right? Lawyers, certain people, professions, not all lawyers, but for the most part, politicians, lawyers, all that, it's a greed thing. It's money. They will tell you how much they care about you. They do not. They care about getting paid, which is why this has all happened to me, because I didn't have any money to pay anyone. But yeah, the annulment terms aren't even filed under my legal name. I have proof of that. I sent it to her. I even explained to her, thinking I'm talking to another human being. I explained to her what happened before we even got into court. I don't know why I thought that that would change the situation. It's just so corrupt. Josh was never lied to. There was no fraud. I was just as surprised to find out that me and Travis's divorce didn't go through as everybody. I was the most surprised. I was so surprised that when Josh told me, by the way, I found this out from Josh, the man who had been abusing me emotionally and psychologically for many years. He was the one who told me this. I didn't even believe it at first because he used to make up shit all the time just to hurt my feelings and stress me out and bully me and push me to my point. I didn't even believe him. I was like, okay, whatever, just leave me alone. Jennifer and Chris found this out. They caused this chain of events for this even to be unearthed. And then they went and told Joshua that I was still married to Travis before anyone ever told me that I was still married to Travis. I'm trying to keep these videos short. Like I said, she's gonna, Miss Naderman's gonna come up a lot in the custody stuff. And I know there was more that I wanted to say about this annulment, but just talking about this, this doesn't make any sense. These laws are meant for criminals. They're not meant for people who made very honest mistakes that they didn't even know they made until over a decade later. That's not how this works. Josh annulled our marriage even after we had had a separation agreement signed. And in that separation agreement, I had forfeited all of his retirement. His spousal payments were going to be so low. I didn't want anything from him. 50-50 custody of the kids. It will show that I did not want anything. I completely signed over any rights to his retirement, even though we had been married for 10 years. I didn't have to do that. Josh did not annul this marriage because he felt defrauded. He annulled this marriage because he's a little boy who didn't want to take care of his manly responsibilities once he decided that he was going to go start sleeping with someone else and didn't want to be a family man anymore. And I'm not even judging that. If, people make mistakes, you don't want to be a family man, that's fine. But this is what made me homeless. I lost my TRICARE, my health insurance. And he had already taken all funds from me like over a year prior. He had already switched bank accounts, which was also illegal. He had cheated on me multiple times, which he did so much messed up stuff in that marriage. It makes a little sense, I guess, that he would rather have it annulled than go to a divorce. But what doesn't make it make sense is that it wasn't contested. There was going to be no divorce trial. I had already signed everything away. And then he decides to do this because it gets out of him taking care of the woman that he said in front of God, in front of our courts, and in front of everybody else that he would love in richer for poor, sickness and health. He did not stand up to that. He's a little boy. He's not a man taking care of any family. He's a little boy who doesn't want to spend any kind of money or contribute in any way to the disabled woman who carried and took care of his children. I gotta stop. This is going on too much. But this is not what annulments are meant to be for. Not in the legal. It's not. Annulments are not supposed to be meant for people who just change their mind. Like, I just decided I don't want that marriage to even exist. That's not what they're meant for. And when we went into court, I didn't have a lawyer. And that judge did not even let me speak either. He cut me. I had this whole thing written out. And I didn't even get a chance to say everything. I got a chance to talk about how my dad passed away and how it all happened. But I had a lot more to say. And I was completely cut off because I'm just some regular girl without an attorney. So if you can't afford an attorney, you're screwed. There is no fairness. That is what it is. I needed to talk about this before I got to the rest of it. It's a disgrace. It's a mockery of our judicial system to be using these types of laws and these types of rules because you're just a pussy who doesn't want to have an, like, thank you for watching. I have a lot left to say. Big bombshells. And just thank you for paying attention. I really want to make awareness about everything that's happening, because if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And I will take accountability for not realizing that Travis and I were still married, kind of, because a Virginia Beach court married me and Josh before they ever threw out that divorce petition. Like, a few years. Like, me and Josh had been married for a couple of years before they ever said that the divorce didn't go through. So in my mind, that says, well, we divorced in Virginia Beach, and then I married. And I understand that that's not really how the courts work, and all of the parts don't always speak to each other. But I feel like when it comes to divorces and marriages, it probably should. Like, I feel like whoever, the individual who signed our marriage license, or some, like, I don't know. It's all confusing. I'm trying to, like, keep all of the legal termination out of it. And I don't speak law very fluently. I'm much better at speaking psych. But thank you guys once again for paying attention. The next video is going to be short, because I really want to touch on the impact that emotional and psychological child abuse has on children for their entire lives. We're going to talk about that, and then we'll start getting into the second CPS complaint that was, from what I'm finding out now, unlawfully even opened by Destiny Woods and then perpetuated by Jonathan Brown after Destiny Woods was fired, which was also never brought up in my custody situation. I don't know. It's just a whole bunch of madness. So once again, thank you. Please, if you can donate to my GoFundMe, that would be amazing. It's under a courthouse kidnapping. I am writing a book about all this. I have lots of legal fees, medical stuff, and I will leave a link in the comments below. But thank you guys so much. I'm really just trying to be as real as I can with everyone, because the picture that they've painted and the fact that my children are still in these situations is not okay and will never be okay. I will continue to fight for them. I will not sit down. But thank you.